Welcome back to the channel, everybody, and today it's my number 9 team in my 2024 NFL Deep Dive Series. It's the New York Jets. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and also, they may not be number 9. I am recording this before any official news breaks on Brandon Ayuk being traded to the Pittsburgh Steelers. If you watched my Pittsburgh Steelers video, which was just previously posted, I said they're either 10th or they're 8th. Well, for the New York Jets, they're contingent on this trade happening. If they, in fact, do acquire Brandon Ayuk, the New York Jets will drop down to my number 10 team. So if you saw in the thumbnail number 10 and not number 9, don't be confused. It is simply because I have to get these videos recorded and sent out. But I did account for the rankings, and it does affect 8 through 10 for me, that trade. But let's pretend Brandon Ayuk is not there, and this is my number 9 team, the New York Jets. And if there was ever a team that gets to go, last year doesn't count, it's probably the New York Jets. Aaron Rodgers played a whole 4 plays, and we never got to see what this team would actually look like with Aaron Rodgers as the quarterback to go along with one of the most amazing defenses in the history of the game. And yes, I don't say that lightly. Baltimore statistically was amazing, but they had an offense to work with, folks. The New York Jets with Zach Wilson and whoever the hell else was their quarterback last year, they had no offense and they still won games, which is mind-blowing. Mind-blowing that they were still able to win any games at all. Barely a bottom 10 team record-wise in the NFL. I think it speaks to how good they made their defense, and we'll get to how great that defense really is. They did acquire Hassan Reddick, who is currently, as of this video, having some contract disputes with the New York Jets and has requested a trade, and the Jets have pretty much said, we're not trading you. So, I expect Hassan Reddick to play this year. I think he's just playing, hokey pokey, don't want to go to training camp type of a deal that we've seen a lot of veteran players do in the past. I think the Jets will pay him a very large total this year for him to get on the field. I think he'll be a great contributor to this team. But they do have some really good young players in the peripheries behind him. First round pick from 2 years ago, Will McDonald. The one issue that this team did have that I think scared them a little bit, I think them losing Aaron Rodgers almost in hindsight maybe was more of a positive, was how not ready that offensive line was. Well, they've completely redone it. They've added 3 brand new players, 2 of them from the Baltimore Ravens, to improve this offense, including now new left tackle Tyron Smith. They also used a first round pick on Olu Fashanu. So there aren't going to be nearly as many offensive line problems as they had last year, that's for sure. Even if they do become the emergency room offensive line that they seem to have become. But the thing that's the most concerning does exist within the coaching staff. And as you're going to see, it's a coaching staff that is very hot and cold, and I'm very, hit and miss on.
So overall, this is my 16th ranked coaching staff. Well, tied for 16th. I would probably make them lose the tiebreaker just because of that big red square in the middle of the screen. We'll get to that. I actually like Robert Saleh. I think that last year there was, the rumors about him not being well liked. I think that does affect his ranking. I think how this team responds to him this year will be inevitably the deciding factor in whether or not he is the head coach of the New York Jets next year. Because, between him and Jeff Ulbrich, they put together one of the best defenses in the entire league. One of the best defenses in the last 10, 15 years. The personnel they've developed, the strategies they've been able to put in, that 4-2 defense that Saleh that made Saleh famous over there in San Francisco, it's just been perfected, and they've revitalized the career of Quincy Williams of all people. They've done a good job of developing interior defensive linemen. Like rotational pieces, especially. They made Solomon Thomas tolerable to watch at times on the field, which for people that watched him in San Francisco, that didn't seem all that possible. But Robert Saleh was able to bring him over from San Francisco with him and continued his development into being like this little hybrid defensive lineman. So that's just one example of what they've been able to do there. CJ Mosley, just an amazing linebacker. What they've done with the safety group is a little bit up in the air, but I would say one of the best defensive coaching staffs in the entire league. Jeff Ulbrich, former linebacker for the 49ers, he's my third best defensive coordinator. He has done so incredibly well in making sure that this defense that Saleh brought over got implemented properly, and he understands the scheme of things. He understands, drive to drive, play to play strategies. He knows when to set things up. He knows when to attack, when to lay back. He's been really great in this role, and he's somebody who is in that upper crust of defensive coordinators who would be in line for head coaching jobs. If not this next offseason, the offseason after that, because you can't have this much success without really being rewarded by somebody in the NFL. Now, Nathaniel Hackett is my worst ranked offensive coordinator, and I don't think this comes to any surprise. Nathaniel Hackett got a head coaching job because the Denver Broncos thought that they could get Aaron Rodgers. That's just the facts of the situation. And he was almost the death nail in the career coffin of Russell Wilson in Denver due to that. There's just a lack of time management skills, basic time management skills, not looking like they're prepared ahead of time with play calls and strategies and drive to drive initiative. Player personnel seems to be out of whack a lot of the time, and nobody's getting better. I think that's the key piece of information when it comes to Nathaniel Hackett, is nobody is getting better around him on the offensive side of the ball, and that's what he's supposed to be doing. He literally got this job because of Aaron Rodgers, and Rodgers stands up and says that's not the case. People that don't know Nathaniel Hackett, but all we have to go off of is the results, and he's never had the slightest bit of success without Aaron Rodgers being the quarterback. So Aaron Rodgers is the deciding factor in a lot of Nathaniel Hackett's success and is the missing piece in his failures. And there's been a lot of failures, and we saw it last year. That was a real chance for Nathaniel Hackett to show that it wasn't about Aaron Rodgers, that he could, that stuff that happened in Denver was just a bad situation where he was kind of thrown to the wolves. He could have shown that, and this Jets offense was absolutely terrible. Absolutely terrible. Yeah, they had injuries, sure, but every team in the NFL has injuries. They had no business not being a playoff team with the quality of defense that they were playing, with the points allowed that they had, it was just terrible. Terrible. And the only reason he kept his job is because Aaron Rodgers is still the quarterback there. So we're going to have to see Aaron Rodgers and Nathaniel Hackett show that chemistry that they allegedly have, according to Aaron Rodgers, for this experiment here to even work at all. So it really drags down the overall ranking of the coaching staff. I think they could. There's position coaches out there in the NFL where if they hired them, they would have been ranked way higher than this. So he's last in a huge way. Just some of the positional coaches that stand out here. There's Sean Jefferson, the wide receivers coach, 20 years of experience. It just feels like Sean Jefferson was just playing not that long ago. That's pretty crazy. Same thing with Marquand Manuel, going on 12 years as a coach. Man, I feel old. We're getting all this. You got Shaq Wilson, who's the assistant linebackers coach. You have Ben Wilkerson, offensive line coach. You got Dan Shamash as your special teams assistant, game management coordinator. That's a big job, especially for the offensive side of the ball, keeping them on schedule over there. The passing game coordinator, Todd Downing, 24 years experience. So they got some experience in some pretty key positions here. Keith Carter, 12 years of experience as the offensive line and run game coordinator. That's going to be a big part of this team, I think, as well. Brant Boyer, 13 years, special teams coordinator. I just don't know that there's no one really on the position coaches that stand out that could even make me want to boost Nathaniel Hackett up a little bit. There's no one that stands out, and I think his leadership on the offensive side of the ball is he's one of the guys that could get fired mid-season as a coordinator, and I think if that happens, that could cause a lot of chaos in the Jets locker room, especially around Aaron Rodgers, who would not be happy by that. So it'll be interesting. It'll be very interesting to see what this offense looks like and how long Robert Saleh is going to be putting up with maybe some deficiencies there. But when you got the quality of players that they have, it's almost idiot-proof. And so they should be able to overcome it. So here's the quarterback, first ballot Hall of Famer, my 6th-ranked quarterback, Aaron Rodgers, gets a 91 grade. Just an absolute legend. His last year in Green Bay wasn't ideal. He was playing with broken fingers and thumbs and all that, so that really affected his ability to play that season. And then, of course, last year tears the Achilles on the 4th play of the game. But he's still, you look at him in camp, you look at the way that he chooses to recover, the way he takes care of himself. There's no reason why Aaron Rodgers can't get back to being tip-top Magoo in how well he plays, in the form, in his, he still has the mental aspect of the game down to a point where I'm just not worried. I'm worried about the fact that if he gets injured, that's what you're worried about, but they really revamped the offensive line to protect him. He's divisive because the media chooses to make him divisive, and I think coming to the Jets doesn't help that because it is the New York market. But it's the team that wanted him. It's a team that made sense for him because now he's finally playing with a top-level defense for the first time in a long time since Clay Matthews and A.J. Hawk were a combination on Green Bay with Charles Woodson. He hasn't played with a great defense. So now with the ability for him to play with a great defense, that's going to create, I think, a more relaxed environment for him, series to series, game to game. That I think is going to allow him to play a little bit looser with a little bit more confidence and also feel like he may not have to do it all. I think that there was a lot of frustration in Green Bay because he maybe felt like he had to do it all himself. And I think when they got rid of Devontae Adams and they threw a bunch of rookies at him and said, here, make them good, I think that created a lot of resentment, number one. And I think that created not a good environment for a quarterback to live in, especially this late in his career, where it's like, man, you can't just get me some guys who know what they're doing. I have to come out here and be a babysitter all season long in games. In the middle of games, I have to be a babysitter for Christian Watson, who doesn't know to run in motion for this play, even though we practiced it 75,000 times during camp. Those little things right there. But he's coming, he's got experience everywhere. Guys know what they're doing. And he also doesn't have to worry about, I got to put up 30 points this week. He may never have to put up 30 points at all with how good the Jets defense is. So you need Aaron Rodgers to be good enough to put up 24 points a game, and you're probably going to win 12 games this year by doing that. And all he has to do is also be the same quarterback he's always been, which is be efficient with the football. Don't turn it over. Be smart with the ball placement. If he just is who he is, this can't go wrong. And I think he's going to be a lot more comfortable being who he is. I think a lot of the running aspects are continuously chipping away. It's, waves against the beach for him. I think when he started his career, he's sort of giving everybody what Caleb Williams is going to be giving everyone this year. But now he's, I think, just a straight up pocket passer. The lower body injuries can't be ignored in that sense. But that's why they had to commit what they did to the offensive line. And I also think when you have a great running game as well, that also is going to help him maintain his form. Because when he had Aaron Jones and he had A.J. Dillon, that was, COVID MVP seasons for him. So, he's got a really good backup in Tyrod Taylor. They made sure that if Rodgers does go down, they're not going to be nearly in the same situation they were last year. And then they also have Jordan Travis, the Florida State quarterback, who I believe he got injured at the end of last season. That's why Florida State didn't get the college football playoff spot. And that was what the big uproar was about. This is somebody who can sit back and potentially learn from Aaron Rodgers, and then you could have a situation where you've got like that day 3 quarterback who can come in and be a starter eventually. Because Aaron Rodgers did say he wanted to give 2 years. So if Jordan Travis can just, be a positive, keep learning, he very well could become somebody who they feel comfortable sliding in at quarterback after Aaron Rodgers retires, and and they're picking in the high 20s, and they're out of reach of like the top level quarterback. It could be that 1 year, could be the year where they go, you know what, Jordan Travis, let's see what you got. But that's way in the future here. But start here, 6th ranked quarterback, tremendous asset for the Jets. Media's got to stop being so unfair to the guy and admit he was right. They do have the tied for 16th running back room. Just for first and second down here, you got Breece Hall. They got the rookie Braylon Allen. They got the rookie Isaiah Davis in there. Second-year player Israel Abanikanda. A very deep, young running back room here. Very cheap running back room, I think, is also a key piece of information here. Breece Hall's like your do-it-all back. Braylon Allen's going to be that Punisher. He's gonna be the power guy. He's gonna be, solely between the tackles. You're not gonna see him on third down. He's gonna come in, be that short yardage, pure running situation back, and it's a great spot for him to be in. Breece Hall does have some injury concerns, which is why it's hard to rank him a lot higher than where I have him for this early down back grading, especially when you have Braylon Allen, who's going to be, I think, picking up a lot of the carries here. But Breece Hall should have maybe been a first-round pick. I know the Jets tried to make him a first-round pick, couldn't move up into the first round, still ended up getting him at the top of the second round. When he's been healthy, he's been great. He's been really great. And I think playing with a quarterback now that actually creates a threat in the passing game is going to open up a lot of opportunities for him as well. A place where it's going to really open up opportunities for him is in the receiving game, where he's my number 3 ranked receiving back. This is where he's really going to shine, especially because there's not a whole lot of depth available. Israel Abanikanda, with a healthy season, could be a good backup for him, I think, in this role. But that's going to be something he's going to have to actually show. He's going to have to actually express it on the field after picking up I think he picked up an injury last preseason or early in the season or something. I feel like I saw that on Hard Knocks. Braylon Allen's not going to be that guy. Isaiah Davis, maybe. Xavier Valladay, maybe. I just don't know that he makes the team. I think it's going to be a 4-man backfield here. But if Breece Hall just stays healthy, this is going to be his role 100% of the time. This is where he's really going to live. And, Aaron Rodgers loves that RPO game as well. And I think that's going to also open up a lot of opportunities for Breece Hall because you have Aaron Rodgers who's going to make a lot of smart decisions and it's going to put Breece Hall in a position to really succeed. Breece Hall's not going to be getting the ball in those RPOs if it's not going to yield a positive carry all that often. Aaron Rodgers will pull it out and throw it to where it needs to get thrown to. But even in, play action screens and all that kind of stuff, Breece Hall is, especially because they're not going to be able to just stack a box against him. He's going to have a lot of space to work with even in the receiving game to get away from these linebackers, to get away from the safety who has to then come up if they're disguising a blitz and they're in man coverage. There's going to be a lot of opportunities here, and he's very, very good at making people miss in the open field. With how much better the offensive line is, he could very much outperform this grade of 87. He could get into that 90 grade, that top 5, that true top 5 running back grade, which I don't think he's. I think he's inside the top 10 for sure in terms of overall running back when you take into account his receiving abilities. But a healthy season will go a long way for, I think, the perception of Breece Hall across the entire league and across the NFL community, I guess you can call it. Because I think there are a lot of people who are like me who are kind of hesitant in that sense just because you want to see 16, 17 games out of him. And I think he's set up perfectly to have this 1700, 1800 all-purpose yard season just because of who his quarterback is now. So I think there's going to be a huge uptick in his production if healthy. I think Braylon Allen, as the season goes on, that's where we're going to start to see a lot more of him. I think early in the year, I think Breece Hall takes up a lot of space in the backfield. I think that's a reasonable assumption to make. But to have a guy who can come in like a Braylon Allen throughout the season, you increase his workload, take a little bit off Breece Hall so that way you don't risk his overall health. You allow him to recover a lot more. You don't put so much tread on the tires there. It's a really, really good situation to be in because Braylon Allen, many people saw him as running back 1 in this draft. So for them to land him really completes this backfield. It does have this, Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algier type feel to it where roles are clearly carved out for both backs, and I think once you find the balance between the two of them, you're going to create a really, really dangerous backfield overall. Something that so many times a defense will come into the week and not really have to worry about all that much. They don't really have to worry about a running back going out and being able to run routes. They can look at who's in the backfield and they can stack the box and not worry about what's going on behind them. Now they do because there's weapons all over this offense and there's a quarterback who's really smart who they're not going to be able to confuse all that much. He's going to be in that film room. He's going to be, he's going to be killing plays and checking down to runs, and Breece Hall is going to be running in the open field a lot. Braylon Allen's going to be punishing guys a lot on short yardage and at the goal line. He could be a big goal line touchdown vulture, as they say, in fantasy. So I would look out for him, especially late in the season. But PPR style fantasy, Breece Hall could very well be a top 5 pick in that. I don't know. I don't play fantasy anymore. It sounds right though. It sounds right, and I think optically it will look really good on your phone screen when you go into your fantasy football app. So I would handcuff these guys if I was still playing fantasy. Just because I think you can get Braylon Allen at the end of the draft probably. And I think you'll have a really good group and combination here, at least early in the season while they're figuring out how much they're going to be using Breece Hall, how healthy Breece Hall actually is, and how quickly Braylon Allen is catching on to the NFL and the NFL style and the NFL speed and all that. Now as the offensive line starts to work together a lot more. It's really good players.
Really good players. This wide receiver room is tied for 10th for me here. It's a really good room, man. You know, Garrett Wilson's going to have a real opportunity to become a number one receiver in the NFL. A truly established one. I love the fact that he gets Aaron Rodgers now, because he is a top 10 pick in the draft. He was viewed as the best receiver in his class. He was so good in college. He's coming in the NFL. He's even been good with no quarterback. So there's something really great about Garrett Wilson here. Getting in this role, I think I would watch for him and Aaron Rodgers. He's going to have that Devontae Adams season. I feel it coming. I feel it coming for him. Mike Williams is going to be, like, he can play like a bigger slot role. I've seen that. He played it with the Chargers. I think he's going to be just solely like this outside receiver, though, in this offense. Just play opposite of Garrett Wilson. I think Garrett Wilson's going to be the one you're going to see moving around across the entire wide receiver core. You'll see him everywhere. In the slot, you'll see him out wide. You'll see him stacked. Malachi Corley is somebody who I think he really wowed people with his skill set leading into through the draft process. He got all the Deebo Samuel comparisons. And when you're put into a situation where you have a great quarterback, they're going to find a way to use him. And I would like to see him do a lot of gadget stuff. I'd like to see him work out of the slot. He's had some pretty interesting moments, some pretty good moments here in preseason. So that's all these things that are good for them to watch out for. The depth pieces, Alan Lazard is there because of Aaron Rodgers. Built-in chemistry between the two of them. You love to see it with them. You love to see a guy get paid simply because he has a good relationship with a quarterback. That's always fun. Xavier Gibson is going to be competing with snaps with Malachi Corley, I believe, in that slot role. He's going to be a great special teams player, especially with these new kickoff rules, I think. What they're going to have outside those top five, they all got some other guys listed there. I think they got Tyler Harrell, rookie. So who they decide to keep here, I think they'll probably keep 6. But that number 6 guy, it's going to be a really open competition. I feel like Alan Lazard is basically going to be sitting in here as the backup to Mike Williams at this point. I think you could see him in situations where he's a bigger slot player, but he's not a great contested catch player for a guy his size. He's like 6'5". He's not a great contested catch player, so the nepotism of having him is going to be a thing. You got, Mike Williams. You're looking for like a career revitalization to a degree. Not that he really dipped all that much with the Chargers, but he had some really good years. Did he ever really play like the top draft pick that he was, though? I mean, injuries, okay, fine, but he's only got 4,800 career receiving yards. So, only 309 catches, only 31 touchdowns in his career. He's never played a full season in the NFL. His second year he did. He played 16 games in his second year. But it's just, he's never started more than 15 games. So, he's due to miss a couple. His career high in receiving yards is only 1,150 yards. So, can Aaron Rodgers get him to have that giant breakout season? I think he definitely can. I think he definitely will. And I think it has a lot to do with the combination of the guys that he has around him. Everyone's got a carved out role in this receivers room. And as long as he builds that chemistry with Aaron Rodgers, it's going to be a huge success for him. And they're positioned where they can have their 2 top wide receivers, both over 1,000 yards, both hovering around 100 catches, and then everyone else sort of mixed in to the deal. Because you do have a tight end tied for 22nd, Tyler Conklin. It's just not a top-level tight end room.
Jeremy Ruckert is a decent backup. Zach Kuntz and Kenny Yeboah, I mean, okay, whatever. I prefer Jeremy Ruckert to a degree, but Tyler Conklin's sort of been like this veteran who sort of hovered around. He's like been a fringe starter for years, and he ended up on the Jets, beat out CJ Uzomah, who they brought in free agency for the starting job, and he's held on to it. I mean, he looks really cool with the tattoos and everything, but there's just not a lot of upside here. But playing a traditional tight end role in this offense, he's definitely not expected to be a top level player in this offense because you have Garrett Wilson, you have Mike Williams, you have Breece Hall. So he's at best number 4. I would probably put him number 5 when you include the combination of Malachi Corley, Gibson, and Lazard. So there's a lot of low pressure on him. I think he'll probably have games where he looks like he's going to be a top tight end, and then there'll be games where he just isn't part of the offense at all. That's just the nature of, I think, his, again, lack of upside. But here's the biggest improvement that they made in the offseason. It's the offensive line, and they are 10th in pass blocking, which I would say last year they were probably in the bottom 5. So to add Tyron Smith, a Hall of Fame left tackle, who last year played really great, showed he still had it, you're hoping that you are getting him with the last great moments of his career here. I think it's a fair projection to have. They also went and got Morgan Moses to play the right tackle spot. So they've completely changed the entire offensive line with not having Mekhi Becton or Max Mitchell as your starters. 2 veterans, reliable. Morgan Moses can do it all. Tyron Smith, much better in pass blocking than run blocking, but still better than what you had in run blocking especially. Then you got Elijah Vera Tucker, who for the first time can now truly settle in to a role on this offensive line. Was sort of put in the same position as like Elgton Jenkins was in Green Bay, where he started as a guard, and then injuries were like forcing him to play tackle. He's playing left tackle, he's playing right tackle, and it hurt his growth. It stunted him a bit, and I don't know. I don't buy into him being a tackle in the NFL. I think once he settles in here as a guard, they could potentially have a Pro Bowl, all pro level guard, especially playing next to Morgan Moses. Then you got Joe Tippmann, who was like a tackle in college. He was a guard, settled in at center here in the NFL after being a second round pick. I look for him to continue to develop and get himself into that top level center conversations this year. You hope they can, especially again working with Aaron Rodgers is so significantly different, especially for the center position where there needs to be like that little bit of extra chemistry. John Simpson's their worst offensive lineman, and for those of you that have been following this series, there's a lot worse out there. He came over from Baltimore as well. They also drafted Olu Fashanu, so they're just never going to have a problem at tackle this year unless they become an emergency room. But not a lot of depth outside of him. It's a lot of guys who have like positional versatility more than anything, like Schweitzer and Hansen and Newman. Carter Warren to a degree. So it's going to be interesting to see who they decide to keep here, because there's really only Fashanu is really guaranteed that roster spot as a depth piece here. You get into the run blocking, they're 8th. Morgan Moses takes a great step up. Vera Tucker takes a step up. Joe Tippmann takes a step up. That right side of the line is going to be great. The left side, not so much. But you hope John Simpson, with the expectation of him being number 5 on this offensive line, can see some improvement here. He potentially could be like the breakout candidate here, while all the attention is on Tyron Smith and Morgan Moses, Elijah Vera Tucker, and to a degree Joe Tippmann as well. But this is just not going to be an issue for them this season. They're so good. And then they lose a lot of their depth in terms of their upside here, because Fashanu is not a great run blocker. So this may be the deciding factor in who does make the team. So you get Obina Eze, Newman, maybe those are the three that make it, and then it's, the other four just sort of battling it out for that ninth offensive line spot. Usually teams will carry 9 offensive linemen. I think in this situation, especially 9 offensive linemen is a realistic number for them. But there's a lot of optimism here. I think Aaron Rodgers will be very comfortable. I think Breece Hall's going to have a lot of holes to run through, and I think these receivers are going to be able to use their athletic ability, their great route running ability, because there's going to be so much time back there for Aaron Rodgers to execute this offense, to scan the field, use the processor, and defenses are going to be forced to have to play some really disciplined zone because they're not going to be able to play a lot of man here. Assuming that this grade holds out, there's going to be a lot of time for Aaron Rodgers back there to find the open receiver. So overall, this is my 8th ranked offense, 6th passing offense, and 12th rushing attack. I think that's a really great balance for any offense to have, especially, modern NFL stuff, having a much better pass offense, but still a really good running offense. It's going to be very, very good. Nathaniel Hackett, again, like I said, it's an idiot-proof roster. Now moving on to the defense, and like I said at the top, I think they'll convince Hassan Reddick to play. Some way, shape, or form, he will play. He'll be a New York Jet. They're not going to trade him. They'll figure it out. I believe it. And when they do figure it out, they'll have the tied for 6th edge rush in the entire league with him and Jermaine Johnson. Will McDonald going into his 2nd year, great little depth piece to develop. He was a first-round talent for a reason. Lots of athleticism. I think he'll be a good rotational piece again here in his 2nd year. Just not quite ready to be the starter. I think that's why it's important they also make Hassan Reddick happy and keep him around. Michael Clemens is more of like an early down guy. He had a really great season last year as an early down edge rusher against the run. He was great. Took a step back. So we'll see how that works out. Takk McKinley, big-time veteran, former Atlanta Falcon. Didn't even know he was still in the league until I looked at the Jets roster, so there is that. Braden McGregor is a rookie. You'll see if he's capable of making the team. Hassan Reddick has really settled in tremendously as an edge rusher. When he started his career in Arizona, they didn't really know where to use him. He was like an inside linebacker for a while, and then he had that year where they just made him a straight-up pass rusher, and he broke out. He had a great year. Ended up going over to, I believe he went to Carolina first. I think. Was it Carolina? I think so, but he's like one of 4 players in the NFL, or 5 players in the NFL who have had 11 sacks or more in the last 4 seasons. Very quietly been one of the best in the entire league. And I think that with how bad the Eagles were defensively towards the end of last year especially, he sort of got lost, and wasn't really talked about for being the high-quality player that he is. Jermaine Johnson going into his 3rd year, played really well last year, and now you're expecting him to step into that role that you used the first-round pick on him. People were talking about him being a potential top 10 pick that year in the draft. So I think he's really settled in last year, and I expect him to take a full step forward come next season. Even when you get into this edge group against the run, they are tied for 19th. This is where Michael Clemens, I think, becomes a rotational option here, but he's really the only one. So if you do lose Hassan Reddick, I think that this is where they could have a lot of trouble on the defensive line. It's really the only trouble they could have on the defensive line. I think that they maintain a lot of their pass rush, because I think Will McDonald will continue to grow and certainly outplay that 69 nice grade. And you got veterans like Takk McKinley who can step in as well. But this is where it gets dicey, because do you play Michael Clemens, and then does Hassan Reddick become like this off-ball linebacker on early down so you can stack up and be like a more 4-3 defense than a 4-2 defense? I don't know if that's the correct answer or not, to sort of optimize your defense in those true running situations. Or is it just an opportunity to get maybe Hassan Reddick off the field? Even though he is better than Jermaine Johnson against the run, maybe you kind of part of a make right for him is to not have him play these like early down situations and just have him solely be a pass rusher, kind of like what Cleveland does with Zadarius Smith, to sort of keep him happy, you know, pay him good and just make him a edge rusher. He gets 60% of the snaps in the season. That could be a strategy that they use as well. I would almost maybe expect it if he is on the team, to keep him just fresh solely for pass rushing scenarios throughout the game. And it also allows Jermaine Johnson to continue to grow, Michael Clemens to continue to grow. I think the goal is to have Jermaine Johnson be like a true number one edge player by the end of this season going into next. Speaking of number ones, you got the number one of the number ones, top 2 or 3 this side of Dexter Lawrence and Chris Jones and Quinnen Williams. Your interior rush is 5th in the league. Javon Kinlaw coming over from the 49ers. You're hoping that he can settle in and be a number 2. Their hopes were that he was going to be like more of a number 1 when they traded DeForest Buckner basically straight up for him with the Colts in that draft. Got a first round pick for Buckner, turned it into Kinlaw. Never really worked out for the 49ers, hoping that, you know, Mohamed Salah, think of the soccer player, Robert Salah, is going to be able to pull further out of Kinlaw, because, you know, sometimes players take a little bit of time to develop into being great players. That wasn't the case for Quinnen Williams. He's pretty much been great since he came into the league. Just a tremendous player, and, you know, that pocket collapser helps set up guys on the edge as well. They also got Leonard Taylor, a rookie who's going to be a depth piece. We talked a little bit about Solomon Thomas when we were talking about Robert Saleh. This is really where he's going to settle in and be part of this rotation. Even against the run, they're tied for 8th. And this is where Quinnen Williams is probably one of the best, if not the best, in the entire league as a run stuffer. Tremendous pass rusher. Elite level run stuffer. Truly has an argument for being the best in the league. I personally give it to Dexter Lawrence and then Chris Jones, but I think Quinnen Williams is fairly in the argument here. Where they really lose out is everything else around him. You know, Kinlaw, not great against the run. They don't really have anyone, to be honest, that can play against the run that's on the interior other than Quinnen Williams. So that's a bit of a concern here. So you're hoping that you can find a more permanent partner for Quinnen Williams on these early down run stuffing situations, because they will give up a lot. But Quinnen Williams, you know, so great on double teams that it almost becomes inconsequential, because you're going to have that second interior guy working one-on-one with somebody almost the entire game. So it's going to open up opportunities for that guy, whoever it may be. Personally, as of right now, it's probably got to be a front four of Hassan Reddick, Jermaine Jones, Quinnen Williams, and Javon Kinlaw for most of the game, while maneuvering in, you know, Taylor and Thomas on the interior from time to time, and then Clemens on early downs, Will McDonald in more passing situations. I think overall, though, they're really putting together a nice group here. And having edge against the run be tied for 19th, that's kind of not even a big deal. Doesn't really have that much of an impact on your overall run defense. The key is how good Quinnen Williams is, but you also are in a situation where you look at the depth-wise, you can't really afford to lose them. It's kind of like Hassan Reddick. When it comes to early downs, you do take quite the step back there, and you kind of take a bit of a giant step back as well in the edge rush in that sense as well. So it would become more of a wait and see situation for this defensive line in that capacity. Though I think that by the end of the year, they would be able to get there. I think the upside is too good with the talent. It's just a matter of getting the reps in. But yeah, very promising, and just, come on. Just keep Hassan Reddick. Keep him for 1 year. 1 year. Your Super Bowl window's small. Keep him. Get him. Let's go. Oh, here's a real exciting group. It's linebackers in coverage. They're the best in the entire NFL. 2 high-end number 1 linebackers in pass coverage. CJ Mosley and Quincy Williams. No depth whatsoever. They're really a 2-man show here in pass coverage, but it's one of those situations where they were looking for that Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw combination, and they found it.
they developed Quincy Williams, who was really a nobody in Jacksonville. And he was like one of these like fringe guys who was looking like he was going to be bouncing around, be just solely a death piece. And then just had this amazing breakout under Robert Saleh. And it just clicked for him. And it was really, really amazing to see. It was really great. CJ Mosley, that veteran presence, super smart out there. He's a turnover machine. See him there with the ball. See a lot of that. He's the green dot guy. Helps direct everything around there on the defense. And he's truly up there with one of the best in the entire league. Unfortunately, against the run, they're tied for 28th. As great as they are in pass coverage, they're almost equally as not great against the run. That's a size thing. They're not these big bruisers at linebacker. They're more like finesse, sideline to sideline types. But that's where you get like Chaz Surratt. They got Jackson Sermon. Jamie Sherwood is a converted safety. So they have some rotational pieces here that you'll see on early downs from time to time. By what these guys give you in pass coverage is so high level elite that you don't want them off the field. You almost want to maybe commit to attacking the run in the front four to open things up for them in the back, make things a little bit easier for them, because it's not like they're out there missing tackles or anything like that. It's just they are capable of being beaten down by a run game, by an effective run game is all. And that is the only concern that you have is you find yourself in a situation where where your opponent is getting that run game really going, and they got maybe like a bruising type of a back that's going to just, look for contact, and then that will wear these guys down a bit. And that's where the deficiencies come from. But as an overall linebacker group, I mean, undeniable greatness from these guys. And there's always that, it's funny, the MVP award sort of become a quarterback award. The Defensive Player of the Year awards become like an edge rusher award, like a pass rusher award. But I think 15 years ago, when linebackers, I think, got a little bit more respect in those things, I think that you'd see these guys very much in at least getting a significant amount of votes for that award. They are that good. And they also have the best cornerback group in the entire league, with one of, if not the best cornerback in Sauce Gardner, who's really been one of the best, if not the best, since he first entered the league as the number 4 overall pick in that draft. DJ Reed is a great compliment to him. Michael Carter II really stepped up, man, and helped solidify this group. They really grew together. Carter just, took a little bit longer for Carter than obviously it did Gardner. Sauce Gardner was so good, he kind of ruined the way that we assess rookie corners coming into the league. There's like this unrealistic expectation of them because of how well he played. DJ Reed is the perfect complement to him. They really melded well ever since they started teaming up. And the other thing about this cornerback room that's so great is the depth. Isaiah Oliver is a great depth piece for them. He's a starter on most teams. Quantez Stiggers has had a pretty good, for a rookie, a pretty good preseason from so far. He's looked pretty good. He's been featured a lot in those like player profiles during the preseason that I've noticed. They even got a veteran like Kendall Sheffield back there. Jarius Monroe could be like a corner, could be like a safety piece for them as well. But Sauce Gardner, you're going to put him in man coverage. You're going to put him out there on an island. You're going to put him on the best player on the other team, and he's going to completely lock them down. Michael Carter, you're going to see him a lot in the slot. You're going to see him a lot coming up in run support in that nickel role. And then DJ Reed, covering a number 2 receiver, sometimes a number 3, depending on if the number 2 is playing in the slot against Carter. I mean, DJ Reed's a number 1 on so many other teams. It's just amazing what they've been able to put together here. Now, the same can't be said about the safety group. Safeties and coverage are tied for 28th. There's just not a lot going on here. The expectation really of this safety group is just play disciplined. That's really it. Keep it in front of you and play disciplined ball and let the corner sort of do their work and wait for the quarterback to make a mistake, and you don't be the one to make a mistake. You know, that's why you can get Tony Adams and Chuck Clark to be your starters and Ashton Davis be like a third safety quasi starter. Despite not really being high end, it doesn't really affect the overall defensive performance at all. Like, there's not really, like, obviously you would love to have a great safety as well, but with how great everything else is in front of them, the other 9 players on the field at any given time, again, you're just asking to play disciplined, smart football. Play within the system, play your role, communicate, and don't try to be a hero and everything's going to go great. Even in DB run support, they are 27th. They're not great at that either, but they don't need to be. It's one of those few teams where you're so great everywhere else. You don't need them to perform at this high level. And you have Tony Adams and Chuck Clark, who are very smart players. There's just not a whole lot of athletic upside there, and not a whole lot of talent upside. I think the floors are really good for both of them. I think that floor suits what this defense is going to demand of them, which isn't a whole lot. So I think it's a great situation. I think you look at a guy like Jalen Key, for example. We brought up Jarius Monroe. If one of those guys ends up playing safety, maybe you have an opportunity for like a breakout candidate, and then you've maybe found like some diamond stud safety, but it's not something that they're desperately holding out for. Like say they would with the development of like Will McDonald, for example, as an edge rusher, where that's a little bit more, it's a little bit more of an issue that they need to get solved than anything happening back here. So overall, it is my second ranked defense in the league, the best pass defense in the league, tied for 27th in run defense. That's a bit of a problem, but they're so elite in pass defense that it almost doesn't make much of a difference, you know. And with how good the offense is, teams aren't going to be able to do a whole lot of running because they're likely going to be playing from behind early and often against this team. I think if they lose Hassan Reddick, you'll see the pass defense drop to probably about number 4 in the league. And then the overall defense would drop to about, 3rd or 4th as well. So it wouldn't be a significant drop, I think, in that sense. It would hurt the room early in the year, but there's so much talent around there, and they play as such a great unit that I wouldn't be overly concerned about it. So the overall rank is my 9th ranked team, potentially 10th if Brandon Ayuk ends up in Pittsburgh. Tied for 16th coaching staff, 8th offense, 2nd defense. We're getting into some really, really talented groups now, guys, and overall groups. And the Jets, this is a true Super Bowl contender here. And there you have it, my number 9 or number 10 team in my 2024 NFL Deep Dive Series, the New York Jets. Thanks for coming. Like, comment, subscribe. The rest of the series is on either side of my head. Leave your thoughts in the comment section below what you think of the New York Jets. Does Aaron Rodgers truly make this much of a difference? You guys let me know, and I will see you guys with the next video next time.